One of the most powerful things about AI is its ability to remove the obstacles between you, technology, and working with big data sets. So today I want to go through an example of how I actually leverage some of these models, what the workflow looks like, and what it allows me to do in order to work with large data sets. I'm talking about over 100,000 records, the types of data sets that would probably crash your Google Sheet or your Excel file. And we're actually going to use a Google product called CoLab, which is effectively a Jupyter notebook. If you don't know what that is, that's fine. Back in my product management days when I was working with data scientists, this was their tool of choice. And what this notebook is going to allow us to do is actually code in Python, which is a very robust coding language. And in particular, it's really good in working with data, and that enables you to process the files, prep the files so that you can actually get it into a database. So let's go ahead and just jump into it. And I'm going to pull up CoLab. You can simply Google this. You can see it's colab.research.google. And what this is going to do for us is that we're going to open up a new workbook here, and we're going to just jump into it. And so what my ultimate goal is, I have this huge CSV I want to pull into here. And for the first time you've ever seen this, probably a little lost. But the first thing I'm going to do is actually go ahead and open up Gemini, which is Google's model. And our goal here is we're going to want to upload a CSV file, and then we're going to want to pull it into a table so that we can then begin to work with it. And I'm going to go through a series of examples of the types of things that you can do leveraging Python and using the AI to help you navigate along the way. So I'm just going to say, tell me how to upload a CSV to the notebook that I can then pull into a table. It is then going to give me a bunch of steps and the code. So use the file upload feature in CoLab files. So if I see over here, I see a file folder and it just says upload it. I'm going to go ahead and upload a file. All right, we're going to grab this sample full export, and this is a relatively large file. So now I'm just going to update it and where I'm at. I'm going to say I've uploaded the file, and then give me the code to import. And so what I'm going to do is you can actually just copy this, or you can actually have it paste it into the notebook yourself, and I'll just actually add a code cell. So I actually don't have to do really anything. So I can see it's importing pandas. It does this display thing, and now it says replace the file name. So it's called sample. We'll call this full export. And then I'm going to we'll just go ahead and hit the run button here, or there's a shortcut. You can just hit play. And you can see really quickly that this went ahead and opened up the whole file. All right, so now I'm going to say, give me the code to get the number of rows. And it is going to print that. And I'm just going to go ahead and add that in. And then we're going to go ahead and run that. And you can see there's 125,000 rows in this data set. Now, if I'm just glancing at this, there's a number of things that I see. So I can see there's some data in here that says NaN, which means not a number. So maybe we actually want to replace that. Let's ask it to fix that problem for us. So I'm going to say, give me the code to replace all NaN, not a number, values with null values. And it's going to say, okay, here it is. We're going to go ahead and add this in. And then I'm going to go ahead and hit run. And that actually errored out. So let's do explain the error. Great. So it looks like it's solving the problem itself. And I'm going to go ahead and add that code in there. And then we're going to go ahead and run that. Let's show the first, we'll call it 100 rows of the table. Let's go ahead and run that. All right. So we can see in here, it is now, I'm not seeing any, not a number of values, and presumably I'm seeing some blanks here, which are null values. Now, in some cases, one of the things I've often had to do is reformat the header column. So let's say I want to reformat all columns to uppercase. And it looks like you can see that it is now giving us the code for this. So let's go ahead and paste this in. Now you can see in this case, it's actually repeating some of the steps. So we've actually already read this into the data frame. We've actually done that fix, and now you can see it looks like it's doing something with upper. That seems to be everything we'd want. It's combined everything I've asked it to do it in one step, essentially. And now we can see it has changed all of these to uppercase in this example. So one of the other really cool tools here is that you can actually then export this out into a CSV, or if you wanted to export into chunks of CSVs, you could do that. And so let's go see how that would work in one of the capabilities available here. Export the first, we'll say 1,000 rows into a CSV. And 1,000 rows is arbitrary. You could actually export the whole file, but it's going to give me the code to just chunk this out. And I want to do this just for speed. And you can see that it is actually breaking everything out here. And it's essentially repeating everything. I've already done this bit. And so I'm going to take an example here where we're only going to grab this because I've already set the data frame variables. And if I just come in here, I can actually just start to add my own code blocks. It's really nice. You can actually add headers if you want to start labeling things. And so let's just label this first 1000 rows CSV export. And then we're going to go ahead and paste that code in there that it gave us. I'm going to run that. And what we should see happen is that it actually exports the whole files. And you can actually see it did export it right here. And so I can actually see it here in the workbook, and I can actually download this locally. Now, let's say I actually wanted to make an API call to then send this data somewhere else. One of my favorite tools is actually SuperBase, which is a Postgres database. And we can actually leverage this to then add this to a SuperBase table on our own accord. And so let's go ahead and run through those steps. So let's go ahead and go over to SuperBase. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and grab my project URL. I'm going to drop that in here. Okay, so now I'm asking it to how I can actually leverage a secret key. So typically best practice is not to paste in your keys here. And so what it's telling me to do is actually this. So I need to pull this piece of code in. We're going to drop this in there. And then I already have these bits in there. And so I'm not going to need that. And we are going to then leverage this bit of code. And instead of setting the string to that, we are going to use this. And I believe this is called, we'll just say CS-SuperBase key is, I believe, what it's called. We're going to give the table a name. Let's just call this test. It's going to run through a number of things here, and we will try to run this. Grant access. I will then go to SuperBase, and I will just create a draft table. We are going to call this test. You're going to import the data from it's a spreadsheet. It's actually going to be a CSV. We're going to drop in this example. You can start to see it is pulling in some records, and we are going to hit save. And typically you want to set a primary key. And so what we'll do is we're going to set everything to text. And so we will make this simple for now. Okay, so we've set everything to either Boolean or text. I think we've dropped all the formatting issues. Let's go ahead and save that. And what we should get is a base table built in SuperBase. So you can see it's adding 70 columns. It's going to add the first 1,000 rows that we exported from that CSV. And then what we're going to go ahead and do is go ahead and append that entire data set. So now we have our table here in Postgres. And I'm going to go back over to my notebook, and I'm going to say something to the effect of, let's see what we need here. I'm going to say something to the effect of, okay, just give me the code to write the full export into the test table on SuperBase. Let's go ahead and paste this over. I can see it's doing a number of things. I need to copy over my credentials. It's just giving me the template. So let's go ahead and do that. We will paste that. We are going to do read full exports. It's going to do its thing. We will then insert the table using this upsert chunk. And so when you're doing an upsert, it's going to look for a primary key. So let's go ahead and go back to this, and we will go to edit table. We're going to add a column. We are going to call this ID. We are going to make this text. So we are going to set a default, and it's going to be generate random ID. And then let's save that. Oh, I forgot one step. Let's actually make that our primary key. Boom. So now that is our unique primary key. And if I scan over, there it is. So you can see primary key. You can see it automatically generated random IDs. And then what I'm going to go ahead and do is we will then try to run this. It looks like it's going to chunk it. And let's go ahead and run this bit of code. All right, there we go. So we can see it's upserted chunk 1 of 126. We're doing 1,000 at a time, so 126,000 records or so. You can see that once it gets into this bit of code, it's actually printing once it does that. If we hop over to SuperBase, we can actually go ahead and start to see that if we refresh these records, 45,000 records are being shown here at the bottom. And as I refresh this, it's slowly adding each of those to that table. Then once everything is uploaded to a table, we can then hook that up to something like Looker, which is a BI tool where you can then start to add visualizations on top of this data set so we can get better insights into what's going on, the distribution of various dimensions, and start to leverage this to actually make some real decisions. So this was a longer overview than I typically do, but hopefully it's insightful in terms of how you can actually lean on AI to navigate your way through some of these more robust tools in order to get the outcomes that you're ultimately after. And there's nothing more powerful in your business than leveraging data to make insightful, actionable decisions, especially when you're working and have large data available to you. You need large data tools, and AI is just one of the many that you can leverage to get there. So hopefully this was helpful. Feel free to reach out with any questions.